Greenfield Animal Shelter was a place filled with echoes. The metallic clang of food bowls sliding on the floor. The sharp barks of young dogs begging for freedom. The whimper of frightened puppies huddled in corners. Every sound painted a picture of longing, of creatures waiting for someone to see them, to claim them, to love them. But at the far end of the shelter, past rows of wagging tails and hopeful eyes, there was a corner that no sound could reach. A stretch of hallway where the air grew heavy, where volunteers unconsciously quickened their steps. That silence belonged to kennel number 14. Inside lived Baron. He was not like the others. Where most dogs barked or wagged their tails when people passed, Baron offered only a low, bone-deep growl. His eyes, amber and hollow, watched with suspicion. Every muscle of his massive German shepherd body tense as a spring. His fur, dark and bristled, was scarred like a battlefield. Across his shoulders and muzzle, long pale marks bore witness to years of cruelty. Around his neck, the thick indentation of an old chain still showed, a permanent collar of pain. The shelter had found him in a basement, chained, starving, trembling in the shadows of an abandoned warehouse. He had survived, yes, but survival had cost him his trust. Since the day he had arrived, no one had been able to touch him. Not once. Volunteers whispered about him when they thought no one was listening. Hopeless. Too dangerous. That dog will never know peace again. And yet, fate often chooses the most broken to carry the most extraordinary stories. It was a gray morning when Emily Carter first entered the shelter. The glass doors hissed open, letting in a breath of cold autumn air. Her mother walked beside her, pushing a small wheelchair that carried the girl with careful patience. Emily was only 10, but grief had aged her eyes. 2 years earlier, a car accident had changed everything. It had taken her father's life and left her body wounded. Though her legs had healed enough to move, her voice had not. Damaged vocal cords silenced her forever. Since then, Emily had not spoken a single word. Silence had become her prison and her shield. At school, children avoided her. Some pitied her, some mocked her. She communicated with gestures, with scribbled notes, but it never felt enough. Slowly, Emily retreated into herself. Yet within her silence, there was a strange strength. She listened more than others did. She noticed details others missed. She carried pain quietly, but she also carried compassion, as if she could sense the wounds of others more deeply than most. Her mother brought her to Greenfield Shelter hoping, perhaps, for a friend. A companion to bring some light into her daughter's quiet world. As Emily rolled down the hallway, dozens of dogs reacted to her. They barked, leapt up, wagged their tails with wild joy. Some pressed wet noses against the bars, eyes wide with pleading. Emily looked at each of them, her lips curving into a faint, soft smile. But her gaze did not linger. She moved forward, almost as though guided by something unseen. And then she reached the end. In the dim shadows of Kennel 14, a pair of glowing amber eyes caught hers. Baron. The air itself seemed to freeze. Volunteers stiffened. A young worker whispered nervously, "Don't stop there. He's not safe." But Emily stopped. The moment her wheelchair paused, Baron exploded. He sprang forward, crashing into the bars with a force that made the entire frame shudder. A thunderous growl burst from his chest, his teeth bared, his fur standing on end. The sound shook the hallway, and every other dog fell silent, as if even they feared his wrath. "Emily, please!" her mother cried, trying to turn the wheelchair away. "Not this one, he's dangerous." But Emily did not flinch. She did not move. Her eyes never left his. Where others saw fury, she saw something else. Pain. Loneliness. The kind of fear that mirrored her own heart. Slowly, with trembling fingers, Emily lifted her small hand. She pressed it gently against the cold iron bars. She had no voice to speak, no words to calm him. Yet in her eyes, in the stillness of her silence, she whispered something louder than sound. "I understand you. You're not alone." For the first time in years, Baron's growl faltered. His body tensed, then hesitated. His amber eyes flickered with something fragile, confusion, maybe even recognition. The shelter workers froze, wide-eyed. No one had ever seen him pause. Not for anyone. And in that breathless moment, between the growl of a broken dog and the silence of a broken child, something shifted. A bond, silent, invisible, undeniable, was born. The shelter could not forget what they had seen that morning. For months, Baron had been nothing but rage and fear. But when Emily's small hand pressed against the bars, his growl faltered. His amber eyes had softened, just for a heartbeat, and that fragile moment lingered in the minds of everyone who had witnessed it. Emily's mother tried to convince her to look at other dogs, easier dogs. But Emily shook her head. She did not speak, yet her silence was firm, unshakable. Baron was the one. And so she returned the next day, and the next, and the day after that. Every afternoon, Emily rolled her wheelchair down the long hallway to Kennel 14. At first, Baron reacted the same, snarling, bristling, crashing against the bars. But Emily never flinched. She would simply sit there, her small hand resting lightly against the cold iron, her dark eyes calm, patient. She never tried to touch him too soon. She never forced him to come closer. She simply sat in silence, breathing softly, letting him feel her presence. Days passed, then weeks. Something began to change. Baron's growls grew shorter. His lunges lost their fury. His pacing slowed. One evening, as Emily sat quietly with her hand outstretched, Baron did something no one expected. He stopped growling. His ears twitched. Slowly, hesitantly, he stepped closer. His nose brushed the tips of Emily's fingers, so lightly it could have been imagined. Her mother gasped, covering her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. A staff member whispered, "Impossible. He's never let anyone that close." Emily's lips curved into the faintest smile. She didn't move. She didn't startle him. She simply stayed, her hands still, her eyes gentle. That night, when she left, Baron pressed his massive body against the bars, watching her until she disappeared down the hallway. For the first time, his eyes looked less like fire, and more like embers waiting to glow again. The breakthrough came one rainy afternoon. The sky outside was dark, the shelter dimly lit. Emily arrived with her usual quiet patience. Baron rose as she came near, his muscles tense, but his growl never came. Emily lifted her sleeve slowly, revealing the thin scar on her arm from the accident. She traced it with her finger, then looked at Baron with eyes that spoke the words her lips could not. "I'm broken too, but I'm still here." Baron tilted his head. His amber eyes, so long filled with suspicion, softened. Slowly he stepped forward. This time he pressed his nose firmly into her palm. Emily trembled, tears filling her eyes. She gently stroked the coarse fur on his head, careful as though touching something sacred. "You're not scary," she whispered in her heart. "You're just hurt." Baron let out a deep sigh, the kind of sound that comes not from anger, but from release, as if a heavy burden had finally slipped away. From that day on, everything was different. Emily and Baron became inseparable. She would sit by his kennel for hours, stroking his head through the bars, whispering her silent comfort. He would lie pressed against the iron, his amber eyes following her every movement. The volunteers no longer called him dangerous. They called him hers. And then, one evening, the shelter manager walked over with a stack of papers. "If you're certain," she said gently to Emily's mother, "we can start the adoption process. It won't be easy. Baron has a hard past. But if anyone can heal him, it's her." Emily's mother looked down at her daughter. Emily's eyes shone with quiet determination, never leaving Baron. Her small hand stroked his muzzle through the bars. "He's like me," Emily wrote shakily on her notebook, showing the words to her mother. "He's not bad. He's just hurt. And he needs us." Her mother's eyes filled with tears. She nodded. The adoption began. The day they opened Kennel 14, the entire shelter gathered to watch. The iron door creaked loudly as it swung open, the first time it had been opened for Baron since his arrival. At first, Baron didn't move. He stood in the shadows, wary, suspicious. Freedom had been a lie too many times before. But then he saw Emily. She sat waiting in her wheelchair, her hands stretched out, steady and patient. Her eyes told him what her lips could not. It's safe. Come home. Baron trembled. Then slowly he stepped forward. One step, then another, until finally he stood before her. The shelter fell silent. Every heart pounded. And then, in one motion, Baron lowered his great head onto Emily's lap. Her small arms wrapped around his neck, pulling him close. She buried her face in his fur, her tears soaking into it. Her lips moved silently, but everyone knew the words. Welcome home, Baron. The great dog let out a low, rumbling sigh, not of anger, but of peace. His tail thumped softly against the floor. The boy who had never trusted, the girl who had never spoken, they had found each other. From that day forward, they were never apart. Baron walked proudly beside Emily's wheelchair as she rolled down the street. He waited at the classroom door until school ended. At night, he lay by her bed, his warmth chasing away the loneliness. The girl who had once been silent now smiled, her laughter, soundless but radiant, lighting up the world. And the dog who had once been feared now lived as a guardian, a friend, a soul healed by love. The townspeople called it a miracle, but Emily and Baron knew the truth. It wasn't a miracle. It was two broken souls who had finally found each other. And in their silence they were whole.